Look at the little sliver of the moon up here. Good morning, everybody. Yesterday we had a wedding here yesterday evening, Christians from Galilee. Then we had an extraordinary event with, I would say, over 40 young people, college kids, young people, professionals from over Galilee that came here to meet the seminarians, all because of one influencer who has a lot of followers, and they were in contact, and it was an incredible evening of encounter. They had a bit of dinner together, and then they spent an hour in adoration here in Ducanaltum. It was amazing. They shared a lot about their life, about their experience, get to know each other. It was really wonderful. I gained a lot of insight into the life of the young Christian professionals. This particular group were all Arabic speaking, so they're Israelis, who are Arab Israelis. And they're living here in a population that for them is a double minority. First of all, it's an Arab-speaking population. It's a minority in Israel. And minority populations anywhere in the world always have some issues to deal with. It's just the way life is, the way society is, in a natural way. And then within the Arab population, they're also a minority because the majority are Muslim. There are also Druze, which is another minority. There's an ethnic minority, Bedouin, and these are Arab Israelis, but they're a religious minority within the Arab-speaking world here. So it's interesting how the challenges they face, and also there's their desire to be just wonderful neighbors, and to share the life. And most of them are university graduates and people studying still, and have work in the industries and high tech especially, the majority. And they got to know each other during their life in college through prayer meetings, and it's very interesting to see also their zeal for the faith, that they want to live their identity in a world that has its challenges for them. I found this particularly interesting, and it also kind of coincides with the readings we have today and the questions this young man has for Jesus, and the challenge the people had living among other peoples, how to live among other peoples. One solution historically has been to eliminate the other peoples, and we have histories of ethnic cleansing, just a whole story of growing violence and challenges in the dealings with each other, and that's a power play politically. And obviously the conscience of humanity has become very keen on these points, and the respect for the human being obviously is counter to a politics of ethnic cleansing, how to make space for the other, how to live with the other, how to interact with the other, with another minority, with a difficult minority, with a minority that doesn't share all the values we share. In the past, there was a certain kind of peace when we were the only ones around, and then there weren't any ones that were majorly different to us. But when we have that situation, how do we do it? It was an interesting case in Ireland, at least from the perspective I understand. I accept further enlightening to understand it more, because I'm out of Ireland for a long time, but at least in school we learned how the Irish state gave extraordinary economic incentives and advantages to the Protestant minority that lived in Ireland, in the 26 counties of Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. And in order that they wouldn't feel that they were being ejected, now that a Catholic majority regained their legitimate political ability to run the island, and they gave incentives for busing for the children and for school, in many ways. So it was a different kind of reaction and response to achieve a good equilibrium and a good position for those people whose ancestors had come to Ireland and developed there during the English occupation of Ireland. We have these problems worldwide today. After World War II, there were major population displacements that obviously caused an awful lot of hurt. And today we're seeing also major population displacements happening through immigration, forced immigration, through discrimination, through war. So these are big challenges for humanity today. And we read this introduction to the book of Judges. It's in the later part of chapter 2 of the book of Judges. So the story of the beginning of the book of Judges, chapter 1 and a bit of chapter 2 kind of gives an account of the continuation of the tribes, the 12 tribes getting settled, and kind of a scorecard on how they were doing in that process. And then we have this text that's kind of a summary of all of the book of Judges, and it describes a pattern of, in general, how things go. So we have the cycle of judges. These are leaders of the people, and these judges are people moved by God's grace to come to rescue his people from their miseries of being subjected by the neighboring peoples. And then they are given victory, and they all seem to be clearly through God's intervention on their behalf. It's not just that they were by themselves dominant, but that they were given victory. And the people then renew their fervor to God, but very quickly, as their status quo improved materially, they lost their fervor and went back to their own ways and did not live according to the covenant, and had many behaviors completely abhorrent and aberrant from the agreement with God. And that would be particularly the 10 Commandments, basic principles. Now, if you look at the 10 Commandments, which are brought up today as well, and the question of the young man who wants to ask Jesus what he needs to gain eternal life, well, one of them is do not kill. Another one is do not steal. Another one is do not lie. So imagine a society where these behaviors would not be condemned. Then anybody could kill anybody. Anybody could steal from anybody. Anybody could say anything that wasn't even true. There couldn't be any serious deal made. There couldn't be any solid relationships built on truth, because you could be lying. So we're touching like the very core fiber of the possibility of human society. And the problem is then when people allow themselves to behave like that, and they think it's funny to cheat somebody, and they go and have a party to celebrate that they cheated somebody and got a great advantage over them. And that's the beginning of disorder and chaos, a lack of peace, conflict, and the corruption of the human being. And so the people fall away from the covenant of God, and they do also religiously abhorrent practices that are mentioned many times in the scriptures and later on by the prophets in the next generation after the judges. We have kings and then prophets to speak to the kings and their faults and failings. And so it's the whole battle of humanity is being described here in these readings of how we fall into a terrible misery then when we go down that road. And when we kill and steal and cheat, and we can kill people at different stages of existence. We can kill people even before they're born, and we can do it with impunity. We can do it. We can even create human rights to do it and call it a right that I can kill a human being. We can have legislation for euthanasia. We can kill human beings. We can also not carry out justice. We can allow situations of grave disorder happening in certain communities and societies in different parts of the world, and we just leave it like that. We don't deal with it. And we can still build equipment to go to the moon and to go to the stars and to fly from New York to Tokyo in 45 minutes. And we can do all this magnificent dominion of the world, and yet we have it so difficult to live with our brothers and sisters, and we repeat Cain and Abel all over again. So the Bible touches these themes which are crucial for humanity. And the readings today tell us the same. And here we have the young men asking Jesus, what's the most important thing for the kingdom? A young man, a young person. The young person, the child, the teenager, the young adult that's beginning business. How do you do it? Do you follow the line of cheating? Do you skip your taxes? Do you, how can you con others? How can you dominate others? And the very successful businesses are the ones who ask, how can I serve others? What can I produce that's going to serve a need? How can I develop something new that can increase the dominion of the human being and the things of the earth? Like AI, for example, is an extraordinary instrument of dominion, and some people have gone out there to develop it, and lots of people are working in that area. Right now, all these kids who were here last night are working in an area of economy that didn't exist 30 years ago, but people developed it. There's so many opportunities to develop. We don't have to steal and cheat. We don't have to lie and covet our neighbor's goods and destroy. Oh, it's the kind of world we want. And then the education of the youth to be able to do this, the role of grandparents, and especially parents, but also grandparents telling stories. Grandparents are great for telling stories to children. And the stories can have great points, make great points in order to bring out these values of life. To help children appreciate more than chocolate and more than fun and more than self-centered attention, to bring them up, to raise them, to help them to mature, to discover true happiness, that these young plants coming up will become major trees in the world, society, contributors and looking to serve others, not just looking to have it their way, not just looking to to indulge, it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge. And the best way that can be done is primarily through example. When parents and grandparents are expressing their concern practically and positively with action of improving the world around them, of helping people in need, that's the greatest thing the children can see. That's the greatest lesson the children can have. They're stopping for somebody in need. They're getting together to help somebody that on their own they couldn't help, but they'd build a little group to deal with an issue. I actually saw that when I was a child at home. There was an issue in our locality, and the people got together and they addressed it and they brought about some solutions. Amazing, you know. And that was an education for my generation, to see that happening. But then it's very easy to forget it. And then we have certain comfort zones we go back into, and then we can lose our zeal and our drive. So it's a constant cyclical recurrence that the reflection in the book of Judges we have today helps us to understand and to process, to gain wisdom. People, God bless you. See you later, alligators. Think of, well, maybe the first thing to do today would be to say a prayer for the grandchildren and the children. Come on, turn around. I can never get this done with my right hand. I have to turn my thumb here to it. There we go. And ask the Lord for, what's the story you need to tell the children today and the grandchildren? What's the conversation you can provoke through events in the news, and in a constructive, positive way. Some little problem in the house or in the neighborhood, in the family, we can fix together. These experiences are very, very, very helpful for humanity. Remember us, Lord, as you favor your people, because God always loves us. God loves humanity, every human being, because we're all an image and likeness of his.